All right, we have two public hearings here tonight. We're going to start with those and then we'll go into the regular plan commission meeting. So we'll start off with a roll call here tonight, please.
Chairman Osterman,
Here.
Supervisor Olhafen,
Here.
Commissioner Nelson,
Here.
Commissioner Mouche is on Zoom. Commissioner Eberly,
Here.
Planner Sumwalt,
Here.
Attorney Macy is absent and excused. Engineer Lysis,
Here.
Administrator Nicholas. Here. Supervisor Plotecker is absent and excused. Have I missed anyone?
So
Okay,
might have to unmute Jeff.
I thought he was.
Or Jeff, you might have to unmute yourself.
I think
There you
I'm
go.
going.
Oh, we got you, Jeff.
All right.
Wonderful. Oh, and it looks like Attorney Larson is on Zoom.
I'm on Zoom. I meant to be there, but I went to the town hall. So I may show up in person in a minute here,
Wonderful.
but I am on Zoom.
All right. Excellent. All right, so we have two public hearings tonight. Notice is given that public hearings will be held at the Lisbon Plan Commission on Thursday, April 7th, 2022, starting at 6:30 p.m. We actually started at 6:32 at the Richard Young Fire Station at North 54 West 26455 Lisbon Road to solicit public comments on the following. First public hearing, conditional use permit request for contractor's yard in the A10 agricultural zoning district for owner applicant Blaze Lesto. Said that right? For Blaze landscape contracting for the property located at West 220 North 5859 Town Line Road and known as LSBT 0244.999.001. We actually have a second public hearing also that is going to be for the major grading for the same. We can start off with Warren or the applicant?
Good evening. We have before the Plan Commission a major grading permit in conjunction with a site plan of operation and contractor's yard conditional use permit for Blaze Landscape Contracting, Inc. Subject property being on Town Line Road, approximately 17 acres, zoned A10. The A10 district does allow for a contractor's yard as a conditional use. The property is a former sand and gravel quarry. The applicant has prepared a site plan and it includes plans for the proposed fill operations, which would occur in 4 phases over the course of 5 to 10 years. The fill is proposed to be structural with compact testing occurring from CGC Inc. Geotechnical Engineering over the duration of the project. The overall goal for the site is to create a developable commercial parcel. The applicant intends to use the site in the meantime while the fill operations are going on as a contractor's yard. The first thing I want to touch on with the contractor's yard use slash fill use is that the comp plan does have a remnant land use designation on the west and south parts of the property that is essentially not applicable anymore to the site. And it is a isolated natural resource area designation. The applicant has done their due diligence in getting DNR, Army Corps, Sewer PAC, and county review and approval of the area to be filled. And this land use layer is kind of the last remaining bit that would need to be removed. So the Plan Commission should determine whether the applicant's proposed fill operations can proceed as proposed prior to a comp plan amendment to remove that designation. and that approval would need to come ultimately from the town board. Like I said, contractor's yard is allowed as a conditional use in the A10. For the plan of operation, I just want to point out a few things. The Plan Commission should take into consideration the proposed hours of operation and whether or not those are appropriate. The fill site proposed hours are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday to Saturday, and the contractor's yard operations are 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Sunday. There's an outdoor storage component, obviously, with the contractor's yard. The intent is to have equipment associated with the landscape contracting use, as well as some equipment for the fill site itself on the property, and then also outdoor storage for materials. So the petitioner provided a list that identifies the equipment owned by the company and the insurance associated with each piece of equipment. However, the applicant didn't specify whether or not all of this equipment would be present on the site, or if it's only some of that equipment listed on that insurance document. The Plan Commission should determine whether the equipment list submitted is appropriate. The petitioner hasn't identified the location of the proposed outdoor storage of landscape materials on the site plan. I think the site plan that was submitted was really intended for the fill site operation, not necessarily addressing some of the things associated with the landscape contractor's yard. So the lack of those details and how materials will be organized or maintained in an organized manner is something that the Plan Commission should determine, whether that storage of materials and equipment is adequately screened from the public and any surrounding private property. As far as the parking, there's a rather, there's a standard, not specifically for this use, but the closest thing in the code would be other general business establishments, which requires three spaces for 300 square feet of floor space. And according to the petitioner, the property has the two existing buildings, approximately 2,800 square feet collectively. And so if you apply that standard, that would require 56 off-street parking spaces. Petitioner did not fill out the parking lots portion of the application and did not identify the location of off-street parking spaces on the site plan. So the area around the buildings is gravel. There's certainly a lot of gravel area in and around the buildings. Plan Commission should determine whether the existing conditions for off-street parking are appropriate. There's no exterior lighting being proposed, no signage being proposed. There will be a 500-gallon off-road diesel storage tank to service the equipment on the site. The applicant did not submit a landscape plan identifying the location of proposed landscape plantings. And there is a specific requirement for the conditional use that a planting screen at least 6 feet high in initial height shall be provided between any abutting property line and the proposed use. So Plan Commission should determine whether the petitioner has provided substantial evidence that the screening requirements of that particular section of the zoning ordinance have been met. The site's accessible via Town Line Road. As part of phase 1, the driveway will be moved north to be in line with Macklin Drive. And this is a new construction entrance and includes a 50-foot gravel track pad and temporary culvert. And that would be permitted through the county. The other items I just wanted to touch on. We've got a number of conditions associated with the proposed use. Some of those are specific to the grading, a major grading component, and some of those are specific to the contractor's yard. So I can go through those if you'd like, Chairman. So The conditional use would be limited to this parcel. It's tax key. The conditional use would be limited to Blaze Landscape Contracting, Inc. to allow major grading in association with the operation of a fill site to include dumping of structural material brought in from off-site, subject to compaction testing by CGC Inc. over the approximately 5 to 10 year duration of the project, and a contractor's yard for Blaze Landscape Contracting, Inc. to include the storage of landscape material and equipment, including equipment for the filling operations. And the a site plan depicting the location and dimensions of the proposed outdoor storage of landscape materials and equipment, and all the items listed in section 3B, 5B of the zoning ordinance shall be prepared and submitted to the town planner for review and approval prior to issuance of a conditional use permit. A landscape plan depicting the location of planting screens at least 6 feet high in initial height between any abutting property line and the proposed contractor's yard use in accordance with section 4H11E of the zoning ordinance shall be prepared and submitted to the town planner for review and approval prior to issuance of a conditional use permit. Compaction test results from CGC Inc. shall be filed with the town clerk as tests are conducted. The conditional use approval shall not be in full force and effect until such time as approvals have been obtained and comments and conditions satisfied from Plan Commission, Board, Town Engineer, Town Planner, and Town Attorney. That's pretty much a boilerplate condition. Waukesha County approvals would have to be provided for erosion control and stormwater management. The applicants are very far along in that process, and they can provide more details to that extent. And a driveway permit would need to be granted from Waukesha County. The town board shall approve a comprehensive development plan amendment to remove the isolated natural resource area designation, which, as I stated earlier, is no longer relevant from the subject property prior to the town's issuance of a conditional use permit. And the rest of these are boilerplate conditions that you've seen before from other applications. So if there's any questions for me, we can maybe address that during the discussion after the public hearing.
We gotta make sure we bring all evidence during the public hearing though.
Sure. So if there's any questions, be happy to help
Sure.
try to answer those.
Any questions right now from the board right off the bat? Add anything? No. Anything for you, Jeff?
I think I'll wait for public comments. And I do have some questions, but they're more definitional right now, and I want to hear from the applicant.
Sure. Does the applicant want to step up? Anything more to present?
Please, you're gonna have to switch the knob on the mic.
Okay,
You just state your name and address, please.
Blaze Celesto. Address is West 180 North 5325 Marcy Road in Menominee Falls.
Do you have anything to add?
I submitted the equipment list and it's quite extensive, and no, that wouldn't all ever be there at the same time. I just don't know exactly what would end up there at any given time. My intention with the landscaping, I have 200 Norway spruce coming to do the 3 sides of the property that don't have the existing natural road berm. And once we install the new driveway with the tracking pad, we will screen berm and screen that existing opening with like 15-foot green giant arborvitae. Really, that's about it. I can put on a plan the areas isolated for storage, but the neighbors have already seen massive boulders, wood chips. It's stuff that we use in our business that come and go. If I have to designate specific spots for those, I can. It was stated that there's a lot of gravel. So to make parking for 50 cars is very possible. I didn't put a plan together yet for designated areas on that gravel.
Do you have a landscaping plan?
No. It was such a wooded piece of property. Again, I don't know that I have to take down, I wouldn't do anything along town line because that's already got 40-foot high trees, except for where the entrance would get changed over. And then, like I say, along the other 3 perimeters, I plan on planting Norway spruce every 12 feet apart just to not have them eventually grow into each other.
How do we approve a landscaping plan though if we don't have one?
I didn't know I needed one, I'll be real honest.
The condition for the conditional use states that one should be submitted for review and approval by the town planner.
Okay,
Does anyone have any questions of Blaze at this time? Sure.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Jeff.
I'd like a definition of structural material. What does that mean exactly?
Hi, I'm Paul Jenswald from Trio Engineering.
Mhm.
And that one. So structural material would be, it's a sort of a DOT term that basically means good fill material that doesn't have any of the list of items that they don't want to see in fill, too large of pieces of concrete, or asphalt that's too large that would cause air pockets. They don't want organic materials like peat or topsoil in it, things like, because those will continue to compress, right? So they want good material that will compact, stay compacted and be something that you can build on as long as it's placed and compacted properly. So that's what structural fill is.
Yeah. And what is compaction testing and what exactly does that consist of?
We're going to have CGC do that, and which is a well-known geotechnical firm. What we're going to do is we're going to be placing the material in lifts, probably about 3 foot in depth. We'll place it in lifts, compact it, have it tested, and so then this is the kind of testing that would be required for some, when in the future, if somebody wants to build, say, a industry there, or I don't know, any kind of commercial use, put up any kind of a building, they're going to want to see this kind of paperwork to know that it's been filled properly, that their foundation is going to be secure. So Blaze's intent is to be able to make this site usable in the future so that he can sell it for these kinds of purposes. So therefore it's important to him to make sure that he does all this testing and, fill it in lifts, compact it in lifts, test it in lifts, so that future buyers will feel comfortable purchasing it.
Right. Good. I'm glad to hear that. I was wondering, is that done by by every truck that comes in, or is that, this as a catch
It would not be-
can?
It wouldn't be by truckload or anything like that. It would be by lift. So if you're talking a 3 foot lift over a large area, it might be a number of truckloads that would comprise one lift.
Okay. All right, thank you. I'm just curious as to how that would work. There's supposed to be 500 gallons of diesel fuel on site. Is that going to be in a spill structure?
it was not going to be, it's an above ground, but it easily can be. I can pour the cement structure around it.
I'd like to see that person.
That
I don't know
isn't
if
an
we require
overly, it isn't an overly large. That's not overly large, but if they're wanting a structure underneath it, I will put one.
that. I personally would like to see that. I don't know if we require it by town zoning or not, but I always think that's a good idea.
Okay,
That's all I had, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, I have a number of questions for you. First of all, why the long hours, especially on Sundays?
I didn't want to have a situation because we do run into projects that we take that have 7-day a week. I didn't want to run into a problem where, okay, we're not supposed to do anything there on Sundays. And we work those kind of hours. The other thing is that I have a mechanic who has to fix stuff after hours. And so I just thought to cover myself entirely, that's what I would ask for.
Next question is, what's the disposition of the existing materials on the site? There's piles of concrete, there's a lot of wood on that site, logs, stumps, brush. What's gonna happen with that stuff?
I have a huge processor that's going to be ground and used on jobs. We had I don't know if anybody noticed, but we had probably 800 yards of ground material there that just got hauled off. We use that on our jobs. The concrete we're going to crush and use as structural.
Are you gonna, excuse me for interrupt, are you going, plan on crushing on site?
Yep, with a small crusher.
That's not in your
Benefit.
application.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
I noticed when I was out there, I visited the site twice. There's a significant number of logs that are on the bank of one of the sides of one of those, the old pit.
Yep.
What's gonna happen with all that?
Processed for mulch.
So you're planning, just so we're clear, you're planning on crushing concrete and you're planning on running a chipper out there to process wood.
It's actually not a chipper, it's a horizontal grinder which produces the mulch in
Yeah.
one process, but
It's a tough-
yeah, if that's what,
How loud is
Um,
it?
pardon?
Sorry, Joe, how loud is it? Kevin,
How do I?
Loud.
Yeah, I mean, it's loud. Now, I could do that in the pit. That's why I didn't haul those logs up.
Sorry, Joe.
If that made any difference.
We've already talked a little bit about the nature of the materials to be used at fill. I assume that you're not in the definition that was referred to by your consultant. We're not going to be having asphalt deposited as part of this fill.
No, unless it's ground.
Unless it's ground. So the problem with asphalt.
Yeah.
So sorry. The problem with asphalt, and the same thing is true for concrete when using as fill, is if it comes in a large chunk.
Yeah.
So when it's in a large chunk, it can create air pockets, which then can later cause settling. So the DOT spec, when it comes to structural fill, I believe the size is it has to be at least no larger than 8 inches. But what often happens, he's talking about doing millings and so forth. And millings are great. That's great, actually.
Right.
Structural material.
Okay, just as a comment, it'll come up later, but I would like the definition that you're referring to included in the meeting minutes so that we have that as part of the conditional use. So we have a definition of what the fill materials are going to be. So, is this the only site that you use for your business?
No. I own the property on Marcy. I gave the given address.
Okay. These are all conditions. I also was questioning the fuel storage operation. I would personally, I'm concerned about that just being a tank out there in the middle of nowhere without containment. So, I saw the review of the stormwater management plan this afternoon, so that's there. I assume you intend to remove any existing vegetation, including trees, before filling the site?
Correct.
Will there be users other than Blaze using the site?
Not without my hiring them or direction, if you will. If I have a bigger job, a lot of times I hire trucks. And so there might be different trucks coming in there, but
I
not,
guess what I'm referring to specifically, if I have a 10-yard load of stuff,
no,
you're not going to allow anybody else other than your contracted work to use that site.
correct.
Okay. Do you plan on doing any burning out there?
We have done a ton of burning. I have a permit, and that's why you see those big logs there, because I was trying to be slightly cognizant of neighbor complaints. So if I had my choice, I would burn those because.
You have a burning permit from the town.
Yes,
How often do you burn? I suppose that,
yeah, that's. It's a year permit and
okay, that's all I have for right now, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, anything for you, Ed? We have more opportunity if you want, but.
Joe, do you have anything else?
No, I've got a number of things in the conditions, but that'll come up.
Okay. Concern in terms of grinding, both of the larger trees, you were mentioning that, Mr. Blaze, and also other hard materials. Definitely could be an issue with noise. The larger trees that were cut down, because basically the old gravel pit area has been clear cut. The logs are sitting to the north side of the former gravel pit. In terms of the fill itself, there is a private home. It's just to the west of Casey's, because basically you're defined by Casey's, a private home, a new intermediate school, and
high school.
more athletic fields to your north.
Mhm.
And I'm assuming that the site, going back to the report, I believe it was from Heartland, there's that old phrase, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Has this site been in your family since the 1950s or 40s? Because it seemed like it was gravelled out in the 50s, okay?
Correct.
And as you look, you can see the buildings you put up.
No,
You use this,
those were there.
okay, you use the site for storage. It was never used commercially, correct? People wouldn't come in there and buy anything.
The owner is still, the previous owner is still alive, lives in Arizona. But
Okay,
I
Are you-
have no idea. It was owned by Capital Grading back in the 50s.
okay.
One of the biggest grading contractors in Wisconsin. But again, I'm not sure.
All right. The largest gravel pit's in the southwest corner of the property. And that's also, it borders along where there is a residence.
Correct.
Are you going to start filling from the southwest corner? Okay,
Southeast corner.
southeast corner.
First phase is the biggest capacity phase, which kind of angles from the back of that resident over to the ramp. That's phase one. So
Okay.
basically behind Casey's.
All right, I was just gonna say, because that does border on Casey's.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
giant. Now there is my property abuts right to Casey's, so that there's probably 50, 60 feet of flat grass, now grass
Yeah.
area
Well,
before the pit.
okay, obviously in the pit, and surrounding the pit, it was clear cut. You've
Yes.
got some huge trees in there. You're not gonna burn, Chairman Eberly was mentioning burning permits. You're not gonna burn those,
Nope,
because those, okay,
they're completely stripped, all the branches. It's just massive log. But it's garbage wood, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna grind it.
just a comment, garbage or not, I would have, I don't know what the situation was, but I might have left some trees up on the top of the berm. I realize why they were clear cut out, because it's going to be easier to dump this in the site and level it out over a period of 5 to 10 years. There's issues with obviously burning, duration. There's issues with grinding because that creates noise. There's issues with the trucks coming in there, especially backup alarms. Okay. I mean, who's it going to affect? That one person. All right. And we've been told, or I assume assured, and through very thorough reports we have here, that there will be nothing in the materials that could be considered toxic, i.e. leading to a brownfield classification. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I will stop at this point. Thank you.
Just to answer one comment you made about the trees, on that whole south edge,
Yes.
actually, none of the trees were on. You saw all these massive canopies, but all of that originated in that
Okay. It was either
portion,
growing
so I
on.
couldn't leave them. So
Okay.
that, if it looked like that, the thing looked just like this giant forest, but when they're, 80, 90 feet tall, they originated down in that valley, and that was the canopies and the spread of the trees.
Mhm. Yeah, I realized that as Phil would be brought in, the trees would have died anyway,
Right.
realistically,
Yeah.
which would have made it look worse. Okay. No further questions at this point.
Brian, anything?
You said that you wanted to be open on Saturdays and Sundays, so that just in case something comes up. Do you think that you'd be using any equipment larger than a skid loader on a Saturday or Sunday?
In the valley.
So you'd use a backhoe on a Saturday or Sunday?
Most likely a sheep's foot compactor and a bulldozer.
And then Ed had mentioned backup alarms, but I had it on my list. What types of backup alarms do you have? Do you have the kind that are supposed to be like white noise, or do you have the actual beepers?
We have the beepers.
Okay. And will you be doing any rock crushing or chipping on Saturdays or Sundays?
No,
And I guess I have to ask the question. You're here for a major grading permit, and you did a lot of major grading out there. What assurance do we have that you will abide by whatever we approve this evening? Because we don't need the complaints and we don't need the trouble, to be very honest with you.
the only, what I would consider major grading, but I didn't think it was part of any of this, was I started to install that tracking pad, but there's no, all I did in that valley was take the trees down and pull the stumps, because I can't leave any organic material. Not a dot of material was ever put in, nothing.
Do you think there's over 60 cubic yards of material taken out for that driveway? Because
Oh.
that's the
Oh,
point.
yes. But, okay, so that, my bad, but we applied for that permit, which is through Waukesha. They gave us the permit. They said, you need to put this entrance here. I delayed that as long as I could, but I thought it's going to be important to have that in for this meeting. So my bad that I also needed the town of Lisbon's approval. And then we did get a stop work order kind of from Brian. He was very nice about it, but I didn't like leaving it like that, but it was like, okay.
This is
Well,
Brian.
Fair enough.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm the guy.
oh, I don't
I'm
think
the
I
nice
have,
guy who sent you the email.
Thank
asking
you.
to stop.
glad I didn't say that, son of a gun. But
That's okay.
anyway, I've talked to you a couple of times, but nice to meet you.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Anything else from staff at this point before we open it up to the public for comment?
I just wanted to address the question regarding the phasing of the filling. So I have up on the screen right now from the site plan / engineering submittal that shows the phasing. So this would be the south end of the property down here where phase one is being showed. This is the southeast portion that Blaze was referring to. We've got phase two wrapping the west side of the property and then kind of coming up towards the north a little bit. And then phase three being in the center of the pit. And then phase four is on a different sheet, but kind of includes just cleaning things up over here in this corner.
Oh, sure.
Sorry.
No problem.
However you guys address the crushing of concrete or asphalt, I just want to make sure that there's some means of water to control dust as well. So it's not just a noise concern, but a dust control concern too. In addition to grading as well. So there'll be times when that material will get dry. Trucks will be coming in and out, causing dust concerns as well.
All right, anything else from staff at this point? All right, at this time, we're going to open up to the public then for public comment. We'll have whoever
Thanks.
wants to speak, we'll have you step out to the microphone, state your name and address, please.
Is this on?
Yep.
Okay, my name is Ken Hune. I live at N56 W221 64 Silver Spring Drive. I'm the private residence between Casey's and this property. When we bought our home, we believed the wetland designation that was on the south end of this property. We thought that that would preserve the peaceful view and the privacy of our backyard, which was really the most important part. We knew that stuff was going to go on either sides of us, but we really thought what was going to our backyard was going to be preserved. It's really unfortunate that there wasn't more diligence in using or designating that as a wetland. It was very sad for us to discover that it was basically a pretend wetland. After reviewing the Blaze proposal, we came to one simple conclusion, asking us to deal with noise, diesel fumes, dust, smoke, and loss of privacy for 5 to 10 years is just unreasonable. We already have had to keep our windows closed due to the smoke. There's a lot of burning on the site already, and the burning has been left to just smolder. So the fires are not put out, they just smolder. What's important to understand is that the Blaze pit is a short 25 unobstructed feet from our property, now that all the trees and shrubs have been cut down. So we ask you to give Blaze no more than 2 years to fill this area. We also ask that you set these conditions. Number one, require the structural material brought to the site to be dumped directly into the pit area as is, without any processing on site. We don't need any more noise, diesel fumes, dust, smoke, whatever. Number two, require the frequent use of water across the site as needed to control dust. Number three, allow burning, but only of trees and shrubs cut down on this property, and require that all fires be completely extinguished by no later than 7 p.m. to avoid this ongoing smoldering. And number four, require a staggered double row of 6-foot evergreen trees along the boundary with our property. This would shield some of the pit activity, reduce noise, reduce dust, reduce diesel fumes, but most importantly, it would help prevent accidents. Accidents are a real concern because many younger kids walk a fairly narrow path between the pit and our property going from school over to Casey's. There's just a corridor there that they go through. And they go in bunches, which means there's a lot of horsing around, kids running and chasing. And when kids run and chase, they're not watching where they're going. And I'd hate to have a child go down into that pit because it's a steep drop off. It's like 15+ feet. And it's got a lot of stumps that where the trees and shrubs and stuff used to be that have now been cut off. Thanks for listening to me.
Thank you, sir. Would you like, you pretty much read your letter that you sent.
That's right.
Okay, so I was gonna read that tonight, but you're good with me not reading it. then?
Yeah, you don't have to read that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Who else wishes to speak?
I've got a comment card from Eric Miller.
My name is Eric Miller, and I live at West 220 North 5784 Townline Road. I'm in Menominee Falls, so I'm directly east of the property and just south of the current main entrance. I have several things of concern now to bring to your attention this evening. Originally, Blaze purchased the property, I believe, on a land contract from the Highland Group, and this was in 2020. In January 20th of 2021, I contacted Kathy, the town clerk, and Ryan, the building inspector, about a lot of fill and grading to the site. And at the time, I contacted the town clerk and she said there were no permits pulled for any of this. And I do have a picture of what was going on in 2021. And that was the initial start to the grading. Ryan and Kathy told me that I was concerned with the wetland area. And I guess there's two areas. There was a wetland and a conservancy. And I really wasn't sure which was which. But on the west side where they were filling in 2021 was more of a conservancy area. It wasn't the wetland area, which is at the south of the pit. And there was some confusion on whether Waukesha County was in charge of doing this or supervising that, or if the town's filling and ordinances pertain to it. And I think there was some mix up of communication because the county said the town was in charge of it because the county didn't have any jurisdiction on the property. And the town basically said, well, because of the wetlands, the county was in charge of this. And therefore, nothing really got done about the filling. The filling continued to this day. March 28th of 2021, I followed it up and there were still no permits issued by the town for any of the filling or the grading. In the summer of 2021, Blaze started bringing in equipment to the site. They were bringing in big cats, excavators, and then they have some trucks that they store there, and they were starting to store construction equipment outside along the berm on Front and Town Line. Now, one of the problems with the berm on Town Line is it's all deciduous trees. It's not particularly high. It's maybe 5 or 6 feet high. So in summer, you don't see the equipment, but as soon as the leaves drop and fall, all through the winter until May, you see whatever they've got parked by the berm. And this is an issue for us if they're going to be putting more construction equipment onto the site. In January of 22 of this year, they resumed a more major filling and grading resumed. And I have some pictures of what was coming in. This is from March. At that point, again, I contacted the town because it seemed to be a lot more. And I was told that the DNR wetlands in the conservancy area had been delineated by the DNR, and that was going to be removed. And it wasn't an issue with filling that. The only thing is at that time, there were still no permits issued by the town or the county to do any grading or filling at that time. One day when I was out in January, it was a warmer day. I counted 30 of the big quad axle dump trucks come into the site between 9:30 and 2 in the afternoon and dump fill. I talked to somebody at Helquest and they said there's 14 cubic yards on average on a truck. And the ones that I counted, it was over 30. So they've already dumped 462 cubic yards just in that day of fill. February of 2022, the tree cutting began. And again, since it was in Conservancy, they pretty much clear cut the pit. And most of the trees on the south and west side are now gone, blocking the view of the people who live next to Casey's. They can see every pile in the log piles that they did. In February, in March, the burning started to begin. And it appeared they were burning all the branches and the brush and the smaller parts of the trees. This went on practically for 3 weeks, and it was a continuous burn every day. And it was a large burn. It wasn't a 4x4 area that they burned. It was a giant pile. And every day they would add more and more wood to it. And it would smoke out the neighborhood to the northeast, Silver Springs Meadow. It would drift across to my neighbor Pam's house. I'm a little farther south, so the westerly wind kept it more a little north of me. But then when the wind would change, we would get it. And you would smell smoke in the house. And actually on days it'd cling so low, it looked like a fog going through the yards of the subdivision behind me. At the end of March, they began to pile boulders across the street directly from my neighbor and myself at the entrance. And every time they would dump the boulders, the windows in the house would rattle on the front of the house. And it would sound like a thunderclap when they would load the boulders back into the dump trucks and then take them out to wherever they were going to. And I have some pictures of that. Now, I'm very concerned with the boulder issue and the storage of the material. This is a landscaping firm and they're running a yard. They have 75 acres on Marcy Road, which is approximately 2 miles away. I don't feel it's appropriate for them to be storing all the boulders and the landscape materials at this site when they have a site with 75 acres and the neighbors aren't as near as close. These boulders are probably 100 feet from my neighbor's house and a little over maybe 160 feet from my house. And I think that's the total inappropriate area to be storing them. They have 17 acres there. Why is everything as close as to the neighbors as you could possibly get? If they are allowed to have these, it should be at the northwest corner of the property, behind the buildings, and as far away from the residential properties as there can possibly be. I have a concern about their landscaping plan. He's in the landscaping business. I would think that there would be a plan submitted that would show where they're going to have some type of vegetation. Right now, there is a lot of exposed dirt. When it gets dry in summer, the dust is blown with the westerly winds over the front berm and town line into our yards, into the subdivision behind me. There once was a lot of gravel on the site. Now it's mostly dirt. And I don't think there's been any gravel. I've been there 27 years. I haven't seen any gravel ever laid on the site. And the stuff that was there when I bought the property 27 years ago was basically dirt. So that gets kicked up by any truck or Caterpillar or any type of vehicle going in there. I have a question on the driveway, the new driveway they're putting in. Where does the driveway actually go once it comes into the site? Does it loop around the back of the buildings to the garage doors? And if it does loop around, that's a pretty long driveway. Is it going to be a gravel driveway? Is it going to be a dirt driveway? Is it going to be a paved driveway? There is no gravel right back there. That's going to collect and kick up a lot of dust. The other issue I have is the amount of outdoor storage of their equipment, where is that storage going to be? Are they going to put it all by the berm? Are they going to put it in front of the buildings where we can see it once the leaves drop on the deciduous trees? And if you want to hear some outdoor storage pictures. It's just not very attractive right now or orderly. And how are they going to handle the dust that's being kicked up from the exposed areas? Where will the employee parking be? Is it going to be gravel? Is it going to be just dirt? Is it going to be paved? Are we going to see the cars? What specific landscaping materials are going to actually be stored there? The lot on Marcy Road that they have has a tower of firewood. Is that something they're going to be considered landscaping material that they're going to be storing here? Are they going to be storing big piles of boulders that are going to have noise and vibrations? Are they towers of mulch? I mean, the piles get pretty big. You can actually see them over some of the equipment. They're taller than the dump trucks are. And all of this can be seen from our homes. I have a couple of pictures of their Marcy Road site that you can see some of the piles that they've got there. So right now, I don't approve of the use. I don't think they've got an incomplete application contrary to the town's requirements and ordinances. There's a lack of specific information on what's going to be there. If they have equipment, where is it going to be on it? What type of landscaping? What type of prevention are they doing? The contractor's yard hours are 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. The Village of Menominee Falls converted the Marcy Road site from a non-conforming use to a conditional use in 2020. And they required them to pave their 2 driveway entrances, pave the employee parking, and their hours were limited from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. It's detrimental, I think, to the neighbors now that we're hearing that on top of that, they're going to have some type of grinding equipment there. We're already having vibrations from their dumping and taking out of boulders. And now we're going to have possible dust and more noise and vibrations from the grinding equipment, from the concrete and from the log storage. It's a nuisance. There's dust, the smoke. Are there possible health implications to this? We like to keep our windows open in summer, but is that something we're going to be able to do now with this? I think the operation just is inharmonious to the area. It produces no public benefits for the town or any of the neighbors around it. I don't see that based on all the red flags that have come up in the past year and a half of what's going on with this site, no permits pulled, continuous dumping, burning without any really consideration of the neighbors for the entire month of March. I just see so many red flags with this operation right now. I don't think it fits for the area. They have a contractor's yard 2 miles away. Why not use that to the fullest extent with the 75 acres? They're on 17 acres here. I know it's a fill site, but I don't think the contractor's yard in this location is appropriate. And I just want to thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. We have Lisa Otis, I see, with her hand raised.
We do. I have one more comment card from a Pamela Newman. Lisa, I won't forget you, I promise.
Hi, my name is Pam Newman. My address is West 220 North 5806 Town Line Road, Menominee Falls. So we're directly across the street. I have a list of my concerns and points for the board to consider that I'd like to go through, even though there have been some comments made already in regard to a few of the issues. Regarding the hours of operation, the fill site 7 in the morning till 7 p.m. And the contractor's yard 6 till 8. I was wondering about the amount and the frequency of heavy equipment traffic during the Hamilton High School student and staff high traffic activity in the morning until about 7:30. And then again, when school is dismissed at 2:30, the school traffic is pretty heavy, and I don't know if that's anything to consider with the amount of heavy equipment going in and out. As far as the site fill, I guess we'd like to know a little more about the process of filling the site regarding the approximate amount of loads and traffic, the noise and dust incurred throughout the day that we are to expect, especially if it's a 5 to 10 year duration. There was also information given about drainage at the fill site, which is an environmental issue that I'm not really familiar with, but I'm wondering if there's cause for concern about the private wells located directly across the street. As far as the yard and outdoor storage, I was wondering where that 500-gallon off-road diesel tank is going to be located. And has it been determined the number of vehicles and equipment that are to be stored on the site and where they're going to be located in the yard? And has it been determined where the outdoor storage of landscape materials will be, including the boulders and the piles of mulch and other materials used? I guess the concern of the residential owners is being exposed to the constant view of working material piles being continually managed and of the performance of the heavy equipment to do so. With landscaping, although the planting screen requirements appear to be addressed for the abutting property line, the screening along Town Line Road is not adequate, and the existing planting does not sufficiently screen the yard from view entirely. Currently, the existing drive is wide open with view of the boulder piles and mulch and heavy equipment stored close to the road. And with the new entrance further to the north, will this existing entrance be permanently closed and landscaped with appropriate screening that provides coverage from view of their yard? Because of the dust in the yard during vehicle movement, are there any plans for any paving or gravel in the high traffic areas? And then under the general condition use considerations per section 4D, F states the proposed use shall not be noxious or offensive by reason of vibration, noise, odor, dust, smoke, or gas. And until recently, burning at the yard occurred throughout the day with noxious smoke billowing into the yards located across the street from the pit. The odor actually permeated the interior of our homes and was more than annoying. And I know municipalities have regulations on burning, and I'm not sure what the regulations are for our area. And currently there's a large pile of boulders stored close to the street. And there had been activity of loading boulders into dump trucks that not only caused loud startling noise and disturbance, but also vibrations felt in my home across the street, which include the rattling of my windows. And my concern, if continued, is for the damage of walls, windows, and foundations that might occur. And I want to say, I know that the yard with heavy equipment, landscaping materials, and increased traffic and undesirable view detracts from the value of our residential properties. My hope is that the concerns of the property owners who are directly affected negatively by the growth of Blaze Landscape Contracting will be taken into consideration and addressed to help satisfy concerns with agreeable planning. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more cards? All right, Lisa.
Okay.
Lisa Otis.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, Lisa Otis. I'm at W2209359 Town Line Road, Town of Lisbon. I live towards County Q. I'm not an adjacent resident. However, the people that have spoken tonight, boy, I'm with you 100% on with your concerns. And I wanted to just also say that I appreciate the members of the commission and the questions that you've posed to regarding this proposal to this gentleman. You know, a lot of what I wanted to ask and talk about, it has been talked about already. One thing that I do want to say, you know, I'm not an adjacent resident. However, Town of Lisbon is not a huge town. What affects people close by, yeah, that's huge, but it also affects the rest of the town. I drive down Town Line Road on a regular basis to Lisbon Road to go places. So I, you know, that whole road, that whole stretch from Q to K is what I drive. So I wonder if, can we pull up page 88 from the packet and put it on the screen? There, you're right in there. Yep. Yep, there you go. Thank you. Okay, so one question is this gentleman has been doing for at least a year, clear cutting and filling, and did not have the proper permits. Who enforces that? I mean, what is the retribution on that? Because, gee, I want to start clear cutting my land and I can feign I didn't know I needed permits and the damage is already done. I mean, there's got to be some way to enforce residents, business owners, landowners from beginning projects before the proper permits, the proper approvals have been obtained from all sources, whether it's county, whether it's the town. So I don't understand how someone gets away with that. And then, so looking at this picture, you can see the land that he's already clear cut. That is, it looks to me like dirt, dust. There are the buildings. There are, I don't know what all the stuff is on that brown, big brown area. It just looks like real helter-skelter kind of piece of land. And what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing is that the green that is around there, there's a wetland, whether it's natural or not, water drains there. And before it was a quarry, was it a wetland at that point? Around that wetland, there's woodland. And knowing the type of plants that are in the town of Lisbon, I am sure that there are native plants in there, trees, shrubs, perennials, ephemerals. So he's going to clear cut all of that, take that all out of there. And to me, with the plan that he's got, it's going to look like that brown area that he's already clear cut and has materials and equipment on. If I have to vote, I'm voting for the green because that other part of that property is unsightly. And yes, the deciduous trees, they're great in the summer. We should have them. Native trees should be planted, but he could also be putting in, rather than Norway spruce, which grows fast and it dies fast. It's not a native. It provides little, it provides almost no benefit to the native pollinators, birds, and animals. So as a landscaper, that's a pretty poor landscape plan. And he hasn't even given a plan. And as I know a lot of you know, that is important to me. So I say this property, which half of it is still decent, the other half looks like, in my opinion, it looks like crap. And that's what that whole thing, I think, is going to look like eventually. So a number of the things that have been addressed already, I'm not going to go through everything. But the thing that I am really unsure about is we talked about what can't go in as fill material. What can go in? Ground asphalt. What else can go in? What is the definition of the proper materials? I haven't heard that yet tonight. Is there going to be a requirement that in taking out that wetland and that woodland, that he's got to reestablish that somewhere? I don't think that's anywhere either. Because it's deemed not a natural wetland. And that to me is, we've already clear cut and paved for Casey's, and now we're going to do the same thing for this adjacent property. I'm unclear about the change to the comprehensive plan because I read in the packet that because the wetland area would be changed from that designation, excuse me, that designation, that there would have to be a change to the comprehensive plan. Well, is it really that easy to change the comprehensive plan and take away wetland and conservancy land by just, okay, we'll amend the plan and then everything will be fine? I object to that type of an action. The diesel tank. There was a ton of discussion about the quick trip on 164 and the requirements, the dangers, the precautions, the safety measures needed when you're storing fuel on a property. It sounds like he's just putting a tank and it's going to be there. And I feel like there's a lack of concern for safety measures, precautionary measures. What if that tank ruptures? 500 gallons of diesel is not a small amount. And that's going to drain into, there's no drainage there, the wetland's gone. And even if it was there, it would contaminate the wetland. Where's it going to go? I feel like he is ill prepared to be storing that kind of diesel fuel on that property. So again, I agree with everything that Mr. Hoon, Mr. Miller, and Ms. Newman stated, their concerns, and they're right there. Those are big concerns. And I am glad I also agree with some of the questions and points that were raised about the dust, the noise, the vibrations, the things that just don't fit there. And I hope that this will not be approved. And I hope something will happen as far as ownership and responsibility for having started this project without the proper approvals. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Heidi Geisel. I live at N58W21959 Macklin Drive. My house is right on the corner of Macklin Drive, and I also have a neighbor on the other corner. I've lived in this neighborhood for 15 years. There's obviously been a lot of changes that have occurred in this particular corridor with, various housing developments that have kind of changed what we purchased our homes for in the first place to kind of get that country feel of living. In terms of like what has gone on with this project, I'm actually kind of surprised that we're having like this discussion now when so much has been done to this property already. And it kind of seems like it has kind of gone on without various approvals. And it kind of gives you the thought, well, if this has gone on with various approvals, what happens should this get approved after that point in time? Can you, is there a level of trust that is going to exist, that it's going to be, done in accordance to what the plan is? I echo many of the comments of the previous presenters. I do have concerns with the screening on Macklin. They do talk about the deciduous trees. Some of the trees are actually not in very good shape. I can't see that they're going to be viable for a long period of time. So I think something definitely would need to be done to actually shield us from that. I have a a plain view of everything that goes on, basically from my windows on the west side of my property. 2 weeks ago, there was a driveway that mysteriously appeared while I was gone for a weekend, and I come home and there is a new driveway by Macklin Drive, which I was not expecting. And, I have concerns with how trucks would get in and out of there. There's a great deal of traffic on Macklin Drive due to the various schools. And there's certainly an accident concern, as well as the constant noise. So basically, the entire front edge of my house now is going to have, very large trucks, noisy trucks coming in and out at various hours of the day for most days of the week. There's been discussion about potentially paving or creating like a parking lot or whatever it might be. I have concerns about runoff. We already have issues with runoff in our neighborhood as it stands, just with Casey's getting built and the road and all that kind of stuff. So I have concerns about, additional water actually ending up and making my property like a swamp. Yeah, I was kind of obviously there seems to be more things going on here with the crushing, chipping, grinding than I think I originally anticipated. Obviously we have 2 schools that are nearby. There's sporting events going on in the various fields. So you just wonder how that, impacts learning, as well as, being able to play sports in some type of peace. And, I just kind of look at like the future, like, okay, what does this lead to? Does this lead to a road widening? Does it lead to stoplights? These are all things that, I didn't sign up for when I bought this property. I wanted to get away from the city, but, be close enough to it. And, these are the types of things that, obviously taint my experience as a homeowner, as well as other neighbors who are in direct proximity of this development. And then clearly, obviously, you look at the what's the future use for this. Obviously, this is a profit-making venture to sell to somebody else and put an office building or apartment building. These are types of things that I think just totally detract from a residential neighborhood. So I think that's all I have. I thank you for your time and consideration. And I would have to say at this point in time, just based on what I've heard, I'd be opposed. Thank you.
All right, so there's quite a few questions that have been raised here. So this is gonna be your portion of time to address them. I guess first, before we go any further, does the Plan Commission have any questions they'd like to raise also at this point, or do you want to wait till we address some of the citizens' comments questions?
We'll wait.
Okay. Were you writing down any of those questions or? Okay.
No.
One of the questions.
Go ahead.
All right. The amount of time to fill the property is one of them that's been asked.
Again, in my business, I didn't buy that piece of property to open it up to a paid fill site where I would allow all kinds of other contractors. In our business, we generate a certain amount of fill on our jobs. It's just, and that site was more of a liability the way it was, just as an open hole. nobody likes development. I work for so many developers. You know, nothing is ever a perfect scenario, but I'm trying to make it a piece of property that's marketable. And there's no chance of filling that hole in 2 years. That wasn't my intent when I purchased it.
Do you have a time frame you're looking at, or is it just as material becomes available?
I would say based on our normal, what we normally generate, 5 to 10 years. That isn't to say that if a job came available and it was, Blaze, we want to hire you, we have 50,000 yards and we need a fill site for structural fill. That might be a job that I would entertain bidding on. But again, if someone else got that job, I'm not going to let them put stuff in my yard, in my fill site.
So before I ask another question here, I'm just going to read off. So when we have to consider conditional use permit,
Mhm.
the Plan Commission may deny the conditional use permit request if it concludes, based upon the information submitted, that the proposed use and/or development would likely materially endanger the public health, general welfare, and safety, be hazardous, harmful, noxious, offensive, or a nuisance by reason of noise, dust, smoke, odor, or other similar factor. For any other reason, cause a substantially adverse effect on property values, be inharmonious with the area in which it is to be located. So these are the factors the Plan Commission must look at. Now, we have to look at substantial evidence. You have to give substantial evidence that you will not be doing this. If anyone is opposed, they must give substantial evidence to why it would be.
Again, I'm not bringing in any contaminated material. We have a water truck. The site has a well. So however, I would have to address dust control.
Dust control was another question.
I have the capabilities of that.
Per our ordinance, what's going to be required on the dust control end? Or Mitch, whoever.
I mean, that would fall under our erosion control ordinance. So controlling that dust, it would have, I mean, it's actually objective, I guess, to who's ever doing the inspections at that time. So whether it would be the engineer, building inspector, county, doing those inspections, we would have the judgment of whether it's being controlled in a reasonable manner or not.
So is our ordinance requiring a dust-free condition as far as like asphalt, pavement, reclaimed asphalt?
What's that? I guess repeat the question.
As far as, so this is going to create dust.
Yeah.
There's some areas where we require that it be paved or using recycled asphalt.
Yeah.
Is this going to be something that our ordinance is going to require on this site?
Not, I'd have to look into it a little bit closer. I wouldn't know the exact answer to that, but I know that there's some concerns with tracking material out on the roadway and so forth. And in order to eliminate that, you'd have to have some type of a gravel tracking pad, which of course causes issue with dust. But it's also been brought up by Leif Hauge at the county that they're going to have some type of a wash station as well, because for the amount of truck traffic and equipment going in and out of this site, the tracking pad's going to be probably useless for the most part, or having to be constantly updated every day.
Mr. Chairman, I can comment as well. As you know, I'm a pinch hitter tonight, and so I don't know your ordinance and I can't refer you to it. But I can say that if that's a concern, it's something you can address in your conditional use permit, and require them to submit a plan. Typically, we would see conditions tailored to your concerns, and if dust control is a concern, we could tailor that specifically to address the dust control issue.
I did reach out to Leif also, actually. Paul did for me, because we do a lot of work with asphalt companies, and my suggestion was from the ramp that goes down into the fill, where we are gonna put in the new entrance, that could all be grindings. So that basically they're coming out on a road, you know, they start down in the pit. We're not gonna do any kind of grindings there, but they're in and out all the way would be on grindings. That he still suggested that we have a wash station. So that is one of the requirements he's proposed. So both of those things could happen.
Any questions from Plan Commission on the dust control or comments?
I assume that you're going to follow the requirement of the county who says you will have a washing station at that end.
Yeah. I think it got shown.
The latest round of comments, one that I just submitted earlier this, I believe it was earlier this week, right? Tuesday, I think it was. Yeah, April 5th. So anyways, we now show that the tire washing station. That is something that Leif it's definitely something that Leif really wants. So it'll be one of the things that he will be inspecting for, making sure that we do. Obviously, his main concern, he's concerned obviously for erosion control in general, but also it's a county highway, so they're very keen on, you know, wanting to make sure that there's not a lot of tracking on the road. So he wanted, you know, the wash station is something that was definitely a requirement. We will be following that.
Brian?
Do you have your county permits already? You've got full blessing from the county?
We
for
have,
everything?
we have the county permit for the driveway entrance. And that location is the location determined by the county. That's where they want it.
Okay,
The stormwater and erosion control, we think this latest submittal, you know, it was, there's always back and forth. This last round was a lot of just cleanup items.
so the answer is no.
So no, it is
Because
no,
you
but
would have
we
it.
will have it shortly. We should have it, I would say easily within a month.
But you don't have it now.
Correct.
Can't because they're, okay.
Right, so we are in the process, as Orin had mentioned, that, you know, we're far along in the process, I believe is the term he used, and that would be an accurate statement. We've been working with Leif for, I think initially started in October, but we really got going after Christmas. And so there's been, you know, so each submittal usually goes about a month. A little bit of time for us to put together what he's looking for, a little bit of time for him to review it, that kind of thing. And so we're just about done with it.
Okay.
It is on the plan. It's under 200,000. I think but it was very close. If I remember correctly,
145,000.
145,000. Thank you. One of the questions that, since we're kind of talking about the county permit and so forth, one of the questions was whether or not there would be extra runoff from the site. So I would like to, if you don't mind, I'd like to address that now. What Leif is concerned about, Leif has heard some things from the neighbors and so forth, and knows that there are, that the county doesn't have very good ditches alongside the road. And was concerned about how the water might go. So what his requirement to me is to look at the site today and how much water leaves the site in any direction, and to make sure that it is reduced in every direction. And we are reducing it not with looking at future development and we're maxing out what the ordinance would be, which would be 65% impervious. So we're taking a calculation and saying, if you develop this site to the maximum extent of a future ordinance or, you know, zoning for 65% impervious, what would it take to still reduce the flows in every direction? And that is what our stormwater management plan provides. That's why we have these large infiltration devices. We are putting almost all the water into the ground. Our TSS removal is 98%. So our phosphorus removal is 97%, which is way above what the ordinance would normally require. But it's just kind of what ends up happening because we're taking almost all the water from the site, putting it in the ground. Fortunately, we have a site that's good for that because it's a gravel pit. The water naturally does soak in the ground. We did double ring infiltrometer tests. And there are spots where they couldn't keep up with it. As fast as they poured the water in, it just soaked right into the ground. So this ground is very conducive to groundwater recharge, and that's what we're doing with it. So there's going to be actually very little water that will leave the site. So even after improving the site and paving 65% of the site in the future, if that's what the future development is, it's not what Blaze is doing. We're just setting it up for that for a future sale. Even if that were the case, the flows coming off the site will be less than they are today. That's what LAIF is requiring us to do, and that's what we are providing.
Chairman, I just had a quick question regarding the access permit, if I could, before we change the topic. So Paul, I had an email from Jason Mayer at the county on 28th March stating that the permit for the driveway had expired, but that it could be extended for another year. Is that something that had taken place? Has it been extended?
Yeah, it's so he did, and the thing is that it's merely a construction thing. So, and this is kind of when we were talking about Blaze getting confused at like getting out there and putting in this driveway. So he is hearing from Jason Mayer that, okay, so one of the first things we did with this site is we got the wetlands determination and determined to be artificial. But one of the other things we did right away was to get the permit for the driveway. And since other aspects of this project have been taking a little longer, the time frame that we had written down for putting in the driveway was expiring. So we've gotten it extended, but nonetheless, so Blaze has been hearing from the county saying, your permit's expiring, you need to put in this driveway. And so that's part of why he went out there and cut the trees down, was going to put in the temporary driveway that we're showing with the entrance, with the construction entrance, with, what am I looking for? Tracking pad, that's the word I'm looking for. Putting in the tracking pad and so forth. So he didn't mean to step on the town's toes. He's been hearing from the county that you're supposed to have already had this thing in. So that's part of it.
To be clear, the road, which is north of the two buildings, is that road going straight west and then south towards the fill, what would potentially be the fill site?
Yeah.
Is the road going to be, is it going to be gravel up to fine,
So-
or what kind of surface is this road going to have on it?
Well, what Blaze was just recommending, he recommended it to, had offered it to LAIF as an option, as well as he was just talking about it, was that he'd be willing to come in and bring then that drive all the way down into the pit as asphalt millings. So that way it would, be good for support of the vehicle so that we don't have rutting and stuff like that, but also it would be good for keeping down tracking of mud. It would be good for keeping down the dust. So that's what he is offering, that he'd be happy to put in that drive and run it all the way down into the pit for this truck traffic as asphalt millings.
Does everybody understand what the asphalt millings are?
Yes.
Yes, from ground up asphalt. We use it as a
Black
side,
gravel.
yeah, we use it as a side material on our roads. In looking at pictures that we were showed from citizens or a citizen, and from listening to their concerns and complaints, one of the things that is going, the site itself presently, I think of the word of negligence in terms of the storage of the boulders, the noise, Again, the dust issue, the berm that's in front of the two existing buildings being inadequate. I think most of the trees there are box elders and they're spent. Obviously, box elder is a trash tree. It's a tree, but it's a trash tree. The duration of 10 years, gentlemen, that's a long time. That is a long time to be running trucks, et cetera, to be bringing fill in there. I don't know how other council members feel, but if we come even, let's say, close to approval, I would think of 5 years as a minimum. The boulders, the site itself, which has been used as a construction site, understood, but the material that's currently on site that's used in your industry or in your business, those boulders, et cetera, they need to be moved. They're just right to the left of the main entrance where the gate is.
But that will be closed.
That main entrance, the gate itself is obviously, it's seen better days, if you know what I'm saying.
You're closing off that entrance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
going to be closed.
Somebody said something like, yes,
Okay, so you're going to berm it?
we're gonna put in 12 to 15 foot high arborvitae and put a berm across there. That would have probably already been done in conjunction with putting in the new entrance.
Yeah. You know, the irony of Mr. Galais is the fact that if this happens, once the site is zoned industrial, again, it's all question marks.
Yep.
With industrial sites that are occurring today, as you know, there's actually less traffic than you would have at a school. Fewer employees, fewer trucks, et cetera. But for the homeowners that are in the area, they have very legitimate concerns at the process right now as the business is being run and as we were presented with this evening. No further comments, Mr. Chairman.
Jeff, anything?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
What? Go ahead.
Just as well, I've been on the correspondence between Paul and Leif Hauge. One of the comments that I'd just like to relate, and because you kind of mentioned timing wise, 5 years might be enough or so forth, but the county is basically said that they don't allow open-ended permits, and what they're recommending is a permit roughly around 2 years. And at that time, it could be, they could resubmit for their permit. And that gives the county and potentially us, if we would do something similar, to reevaluate the progress and how things have been going on the site. So I just wanted to mention that as well.
Thank you. One of the biggest things people are talking about is screening. I mean, we don't have a landscaping plan. I guess you said you didn't realize you needed one, but I don't even know how that could be, that you didn't know this.
Well, it's pretty easy for me to generate one for you. I apologize for
Right.
that, but so
You realize we
I
can't
don't-
act on this without one, right?
well, I didn't realize that, but here's the thing that
Does your engineer realize that? Did you advise him that you can't act, that we wouldn't be able to act on this without a landscaping plan? Okay, that's what I needed.
I don't really, for us to do landscape plans, we typically know what the site is gonna end up as. So.
Perfect.
it
That's what
is
we want to
n-
know too. That's
Yeah, but you-
exactly what we want to know. That's what they want to know. That's what we want to know.
So you're not gonna, I can't design a landscape plan that shows a real nice apartment building, some commercial
That's a site
strip
plan.
mall.
Excuse me for interrupting.
Okay.
That's a site plan of the final use of the site. What
Okay.
we're asking for, that's required by the ordinance, is a landscaping plan. And if you read the zoning code, it calls for a plan that is, you can't see through it. It's 10 feet high minimum on day one, okay? You
Okay.
need to read the zoning code. That's what we're looking for. That's
Okay.
what you did not provide amongst a lot of other things, okay? It's
Okay.
very clear what has to be done.
So.
I'm sorry for being.
No, that's
just
okay.
It's really
That's okay.
annoying
I-
after a while. It's like,
No, that's fine. Is the berm along town line considered? Because I really don't want to take that out.
This is really tough because we're literally negotiating with you at a
Right.
public hearing.
we're not gonna.
This
you
should
need
have
to
been
tell- yeah.
done before we were ever here. I don't even know why we're here. I'm not gonna lie. I do not know why we are even having this public hearing right now.
I am.
I am
cons-
rather aggravated, actually, to be honest with you.
You came in here tonight with information that wasn't part of your application. As an example, at no time did you mention in any of the submitted documents that there was going to be a crushing operation. That's huge. At no time in your application did you indicate that you're going to have a burning operation. That's huge. As far as I'm concerned, your application isn't anywhere near complete. You don't have a site layout showing where you, listing every piece of equipment you own, every wrench, tire iron, and everything else is not a site plan showing how you're going to store this material. All this information is very clear in the zoning code that has to be followed. I agree with wholeheartedly with the town chairman. I don't know why we were here. You came in and asked for a banana and in the submitted papers, and now you're telling us you're gonna have a salad. I mean, it doesn't make sense. There's a big difference between a contractor's storage yard, and it's very clear what is defined in the zoning code as a contractor's yard. Contractor's yard does not include a crushing operation. It does not include a burning operation. Those are, it doesn't even come close. It's very frustrating, and it's like, okay, I want to do this, and oh, no, really, I'm gonna do this.
I apologize. It wasn't the intent at all, but
I mean, you can see, but
Yeah.
I mean, we really have nothing to even act on here.
Mr. Chairman, we did have one other question that still needs to be addressed.
I think we got a bunch of them.
Okay, but the containment of the fuel tank.
I mean, I think it's, I don't know what our code requires, but I believe the commission would like that,
yes,
some con-
I
some
said I,
containment there.
I have no issues with that.
If we give him a list of all the things and then hold the public hearing open till next month,
Mhm.
then anything that needs to be addressed, he'd be able to bring back to us and we can review again.
I guess one of the things to talk about here, just to talk about it now, is the hours of operation too. Obviously, we're not aware of it. I didn't know about the crushing. But for me personally, on Sundays, I would not want to go until 8 o'clock at night. How the rest of the commission feels about this.
Well, certainly in terms of the crushing, no, not on Sunday and possibly not on Saturday.
Yeah, and I said
I
that.
mean.
But I
come
mean,
on,
hours
don't-
of, just in general.
In the hours,
of
yes.
operation.
No, I would eliminate Sunday right away.
But I mean, in general
So-
operations on
Yeah.
Sunday. So right now he's asking for 6 to 8 on Sunday for your general operation, correct?
Yeah.
So 6 AM on a weekend is, especially next to a subdivision, it's pretty early. If you're in an industrial area, it's a whole different game. But they're not moving next to the racetrack, you're moving the racetrack next to them. So that's what makes this tough. I mean, it is not really, the use here is not, it's not harmonious with the area, to be honest, but obviously there was a quarry here before, and
Right. And Casey's is on the corner.
yeah.
But-
But that's,
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna argue with you.
Yeah.
I'm,
I think there's a way we can make this all work, and I think the neighbors would, they're gonna be willing to listen, and, they just don't want their lives obstructed either, obviously. We just gotta figure out what that's gonna be. So, for me, I wouldn't want you starting at 6. I think 7 would be, I don't know, during the week is maybe one thing, but during the weekend, 6 AM is, to me, is too early. And 8 PM is too late, so I think the Falls has you from 7 to 7 right now, I believe.
now would that be you would be opposed to like my pickup truck going in there or a mechanic's pickup truck going in to work on equipment?
So here's the question is what's, if you're inside a building and the doors are closed and you can't hear it outside? I personally don't necessarily have an issue with that, but it's a matter of what's gonna be allowed outside.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So I guess that'd be something, be looking for some kind of proposal to bring back. How does the commission feel about that?
That's what I would assume would happen. That's what the buildings are for. If you want to do maintenance work, I can understand that. It's done inside the buildings with the doors closed. But at the same time, we're not gonna, I'm not in favor of trucks running in and out of there 7 days a week. And this whole crushing and burning operation, I have no sense of how that's gonna be resolved in my mind.
I gotta say, I don't know how you do crushing there at all.
When I say crushing, it wouldn't be a crushing operation. What we do, I'll just explain what we do and you can be opposed or not. Right now I stockpiled concrete. Somebody thinks we're dumping filling, but that isn't. It's all stockpiled with the intent that that was gonna eventually be crushed and used. The crushing machine is a smaller machine. It's not like you see out on the freeway where they are producing thousands of yards. I had planned on taking that down at the bottom of the ramp, crushing the material used as structural fill. It's part of our business, what we generate. I hire that out. I don't own that crushing machine. It's usually once a year that we crush. So I don't want to call it a crushing operation.
So you'd only be crushing once a year.
Yeah, maybe twice, depending on what we would generate.
How are you gonna deal with the burning? If I was someone in the general vicinity, I would not, one of the restrictions that the chairman read before was, it's noxious.
It specifically talks about smoke.
And you did mention that you had a burning permit. Did you get one at the town hall? Because I think you did. So I think there's a large, isn't it?
And that's what I put on the application. I put it's all an oversized burn. It's not
Okay,
the
I just
4x4.
wanted to make sure.
It's like a.
And
30.
Blaze, that's something that you coordinate with the fire chief when you set
Yes.
those dates, correct?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And I think his name is Alex I called him every morning that I said I was gonna burn. He said, okay, I'll let my department know. And again, I don't wanna be a bad neighbor. I get it. And sometimes the wind's going one direction and all of a sudden it changes. So
These fires are all extinguished by nightfall?
the one neighbor said that when we had real hot coals and we knew we were gonna burn the next morning, we just didn't add anything else to it after 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Did we physically take water and put it out? No. Again, that's something that easily could be done. I don't see the site. I basically wanted that burning permit to take care of most of the vegetation on the site. It just was a easy way to consume a huge amount of branches and stuff like that, but it can be put out every night.
So under large bonfires, open field burning, large amounts of tree stumps and clearing of lands and structures. No structures are allowed to be burned regardless of whether it's standing structure demolished. All other fires in this category shall be subject to a one-time permit issued by the town clerk approved by the fire department. Conditions of burnings will be addressed per each request. The permit will be subject to a fee set by the town board identified in the Lisbon Fire Department application. Persons conducting the burning activities are additionally subject to the cost necessary to reimburse the LFD Fire Department and standby personnel are needed, which obviously you haven't needed. But under there, the burning activity must be continuously supervised by an adult property owner or occupant of the property. So anytime that is going, there has to be somebody there.
And there always was.
An operable garden hose must be present at the site, which will provide a flow rate of 5 gallons per minute and a nozzle capable of spraying 10 feet within a radius of 75 feet around the fire or burning activity. provide, however, this provision should not apply if the fire burning of materials is more than 200 feet from any structure, you're past 200 feet.
And we
I'm
always,
assuming, but-
we always burn down in the valley. And so I had the fire chief in there a couple of times. And one of the neighbors is on the fire department. He was in there. I mean, again, from a burning standpoint, you couldn't ask for a better site.
Right.
But
Just-
I,
You,
I-
while it's
I'm not
burning, you
gonna
have to be,
haul in
I think we all know what you're burning. You're burning the
demolished
on-site
pit, yeah,
materials.
demolished buildings and stuff like that to keep that burning permit. So.
Right, you're burning on-site material to
Yeah.
get rid of them. I
Yeah.
get that. It's just you have to have somebody there while it's burning.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you, one of our other supervisors noticed that smoke was going all night long.
Yeah.
So, and it wasn't supervised all night. I think we both
No,
know that.
no,
So that's
again,
in
like I
violation
say,
of your permit at this point, but it just, you got to put it out. So,
Another huge concern I have is those existing logs. They're not twigs, they're logs that are there. What, if you're planning on chipping those, that is very, very noisy, very loud for people for a long distance. And that's something I have another concern about.
okay, well, we could,
I mean,
Have
is there some
have
reason
somebody-
why you're doing that there as opposed to this other site that you have that apparently is over 70 acres in Menominee Falls?
sure, just because of transportation. It takes one machine to be brought in, taken down in the valley and mulch them. And it would mulch all of those in one day.
which I think if it was one day getting it all done is one thing, but if it's a
Well,
continuous
yeah.
operation, it would be.
As an example, this is what's going through my head. My father was in the landscaping business many years ago, so I'm somewhat familiar with this, but you go out to a site and you're grubbing out a whole bunch of junk that's already there and you're replacing it, and doing a beautiful landscaping job with your crews and everything else. You take all that stuff you grubbed out, trees, the stumps, the brush, all the rest of the stuff, and you haul it back to this yard. That's not stuff that's on site that you're getting rid of. It's a continuous operation that goes on throughout the landscaping season. So you're gonna have this stockpile of wood products that you're gonna have there. And I mean, how often are you going to be chipping that? Are you gonna, I would assume you're gonna have a pile that's, I mean, there's stuff out there right now that's quite voluminous. And you're gonna have this operation going continuously. I can envision someone in the surrounding neighborhood trying to sit out on their patio during decent weather, which we eventually get in 3 or 4 months. And they're being inundated with smoke. They're hearing all the chipping and the crushing and everything else. And the quality of life, quite frankly, just went down the toilet. And that's what we're trying to prevent. And I'm sure you don't want to have your name plastered all over Kingdom Come, that you're the bad guy of the neighborhood.
No, you're right.
So that is what I think that you need to convince us of, that these things are not going to be an issue. And quite frankly, you haven't done it so far.
What, I guess, one of the other concerns we've heard here tonight, what is currently allowed to be happening on this site? I guess would be something I would ask. So, I mean, I think there's more happening here than should be. I think you did acknowledge that too, but I want to know what, until this is approved, what can happen on this site?
Well, the only thing I've been doing is taking equipment out that I had there that I need on other jobs.
But I just wanted I want on record with everyone here, with the neighbors here, with us here. I want to know what is allowed to be happening on that site right now.
There's no approvals from the town. And so as that sounds like the county approval for the stormwater / erosion control is nearing approval. So there is approval for the access permit from the county. So from a use standpoint, there shouldn't be anything occurring. There shouldn't be any equipment.
filling,
There
no
shouldn't be any
cutting, no
equipment
boulders,
there.
no-
There shouldn't be any materials being dropped off or frankly stored there because there's no approval for the contractor's yard yet. The removal of trees is not in and of itself against the erosion control permit, but grubbing is not allowed. So the clearing and chipping that's taken place and the stockpiling of the wood chips that are out there, none of that's really allowed.
Okay. The trees pretty much are done
Yeah, I
in
get,
terms of removal
I
of
get that.
the first fill phase.
Right.
So
So at this point, moving forward.
The burn permit, there's a permit for that apparently.
So
and
you-
that won't be, there won't be any of that because I don't have people without.
So there can't be any equipment stored on the property.
Not outdoors.
Okay.
That's tricky, but
But it's a law.
okay.
It's
So I
what's,
need a little time for that.
As far as the burning, what's allowed to be used for that? I guess if he needs material, if he needs equipment to move things in for the burning, is anything allowed?
We
for
won't,
that?
we won't. We're not going to operate, we're not gonna do anything there other than potentially take the equipment out.
So everybody's just on the same page. Any questions from the commission on that?
If I have to, yes. If I don't have to and it doesn't move, I'd prefer not to, but
Violation
okay.
right now. Be nice to get back to square zero.
I don't know if we want to just keep, I mean, you're gonna have a list of everything that was all the questions here tonight. We can open up to one more session. I think we got one person who'd like to make more comments here, but I would ask staff to go through this. Bring us back. I mean, when this comes back, I don't want to sit here and negotiate at all. I want to, this is the recommendation, this is what we're doing, this is the law, this is where we're at. Get the things addressed that need to be addressed.
Mr. Chairman, I think it would be helpful to try to specify what that list of things that we expect to see. I mean, certainly what's in the code is easy, but and so landscape plan is easy. I've heard that you want more of a description of crushing. I don't know if there's also a code element to that part. I think there might be. Fuel storage, dust control, burning, the grinding and chipping. I hear the plan commission is looking for a description of those operations and specifically when times of day for those operations, how frequently. I think there's a time element also to the landscaping plan of when the landscaping goes in. Does that have to be planting all in before the other operations begin? I think that should be described. Also a timing element for removal. There's current vegetation that's going to be removed. You may want a time element of that. So that's what I heard.
Anything else the commission is looking for?
I think we need the frequency and duration of things. The frequency and duration of such activities as burning, crushing, chipping, so that we can put some corners around these things. And that should come from you, and then we hear
Okay.
that, and it's either up or down.
Okay.
And we need definitely a site plan where things are going to be stored, not a list of every piece of equipment you own.
Okay.
Ed, anything?
No, comments covered.
Nope, I'm good.
I think we need a parking plan and a lighting plan. Without a lighting plan, I say the owners should operate during daylight hours. It gets dark there. So, if they're not going to put in any more than 2 lights over the building, I don't think they should be allowed to operate when it gets dark. It isn't light enough.
Okay.
That's my belief.
Anything else?
Do you have a plowing operation?
Mhm.
better address that, because if you're going to be taking equipment in and out of there in non-daylight hours, as just referred to, that's not from 6 to 8 at night in
And we
this
had,
part of the country.
on this site many years ago, there was a trucking company that operated without a plan of operation on there, and they would let their trucks idle outside. I think they were actually aiming their lights at one of the residences at night, if I remember correctly. So this is all stuff that needs to be talked about. So.
I have some. So I have a list of the types of items that you're going to be putting in the pit.
Type of
So
fill.
the type of fill actually lists, we need a list of the type of fill that's allowable. And I know you said that's in statute or in the DNR code, but if we could get that in your plan as well, that would be helpful.
Okay.
That was one of my things.
Along with the landscaping plan, we would want a timetable for the installation of that. Because right now, the way I believe the code is written, that all this, including all the stormwater facilities and everything else, have to be in and approved. Landscaping's got to be in and approved before you can start operation on the site. So obviously, there's a lot of work that has to be done.
Okay. All right, so before we close or not close, but postpone the rest of, do you have something else?
Yeah, I just wanted to address a couple of things that came up regarding the natural resources issues. So as far as order of operation and how everything has happened so far with that. So the property was quarried actively. And as Paul indicated, this process started with a wetland delineation being done, which was one of the images that we looked at that Ms. Otis commented on. So the aerial photograph from the Heartland Ecological Services Wetland Delineation Report was actually a historical aerial photograph from 2005. So whatever was the condition of the site at that time doesn't necessarily reflect the condition of the site right now. And the uses that were going on out there back in 2005 weren't Blaze's, it wasn't his equipment or vehicles. That was a past use, and maybe it was the trucking use that the chairman mentioned. I'm not sure. I wasn't working here at the time. So the petitioner hired a certified wetland delineator to do a wetland delineation for the site. They submitted that to the Department of Natural Resources. The Department of Natural Resources responded by providing a letter essentially that stated that they were artificial wetlands, and they issued an artificial wetland exemption determination, as the subject wetland characteristics were recently formed due to sand and gravel excavation activities. So the Wisconsin Wetland Inventory did indicate a wetland on this property. But what that was probably done via air photo interpretation, because once somebody went out and identified it and provided all the background of how it got there, the state turns around and says it's an artificial wetland from the extraction activities. Then the Army Corps of Engineers provided a non-jurisdictional determination. Basically, this was isolated. It doesn't connect to any waters of the, that are under their jurisdiction. And Sewer PAC determined that since the wetland was no longer there, based on first of all, they said there were actually two wetlands, not one, according to Heartland's report. And so Sewer PAC says that the wetlands no longer met the width and size parameters to be considered an isolated natural resource area based on the most recent wetland, delineation that had taken place. And by the way, they're artificial wetlands. So what it all comes down to is Sewer PAC says it no longer meets the isolated natural resource area requirements, so they're gonna take it off of their mapping as an isolated natural resource feature. And the county recommends that the town update their comprehensive plan because there's no longer a wetland, which was the reason for the isolated natural resource area. And so there's no reason to have that designated on your land use plan. And the land use plan should be consistent with what's going on the ground. So if the DNR, Army Corps, and Sewer PAC and county have all blessed it, and there's going to be a fill activity moving forward, which you're, getting permits and approvals for through the county and the town, there's nothing there to protect. And so the county updated their zoning layers, and the Sewer PAC presumably will be updating their mapping on their end as well. And so it's really a housekeeping issue to remove that isolated natural resource area designation because it's literally no longer needed because there is not one there anymore. So I see that more as a housekeeping formality than anything else. But it is something that we want to have done because we want to make sure that moving forward, somebody doesn't come back and look at that and get confused by it. So the future land use for this site is commercial. And so the ultimate goal to create a developable site for a commercial use is consistent with that part of the comp plan. And once the isolated natural resource area designation is removed, then the entire site will just show as commercial on that future land use map. So those are the things I wanted to just try to hopefully clarify for the folks that are here and online.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
Mr. Sumwalt, thank you for clarifying that. It's interesting in all this discussion this evening, the inordinate amount of time that went into the classification is, was it a wetland or wasn't it a wetland? And yet everything else fell through the cracks. You have a lot of homework, but I'm frustrated as other commission members are for other reasons. But thank you for clarifying that.
Okay. All right. Anything else to add to the list? Mitch, anything on your end? Okay. Does anyone in the audience have any further comments tonight? Now, this is going to come back for another the continuation of the public hearing, just so everyone's aware. If you do, I'm going to let you have some closing comments. Just please keep them brief if you can.
My name is Eric Miller, West 220 North 5784 Town Line Road, Menominee Falls. The burning permit. When I called the town, there wasn't a burning permit that was issued. When was this burning permit issued by the town?
That's what I was asking for.
Okay,
I'm the clerk. I did not issue a burning permit.
so one has not been issued at this time, correct, for the site?
I did not issue one.
Did the fire department, are they capable of issuing
The
a burning
deputy
permit?
clerk could have done so. I will be checking the records when I get back to the office tomorrow. I had not heard anything about a burning permit prior to this public hearing.
I believe I was there when he received his burning permit, so
Okay. And do you know when it was issued approximately?
I don't, I'm sorry. I
Okay.
don't have-
The other, is this also a public hearing for the major grading that we're
That's
just
technically
had?
the next one, but if you
Okay,
want to
no,
address
well,
it.
that's fine. My only comment for the major grading was there's supposedly going to be based on 10,240 truckloads of fill for the 140 some thousand, which is actually over 20,000 enters and exits from the site, all going down McGlynn. I don't think the driveway or the ramp is in the correct location for the pit. It drags all the trucks back to the front to go down into the pit. The ramp should be at the back of the property on the west side, swinging back behind the buildings for the driveway, and then going down into the pit with your gravel or your crushed asphalt, instead of driving back all the way in front of the residences, only go down again. It doesn't seem to make sense. It's just going to intensify the noise and vibration of the neighbors and the dust. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure, we'll take that one right away. And
Sure.
then-
So I just wanted to state that the access is strictly controlled by the county, as this is a county trunk highway. And the county are the ones who dictated the location of the construction access, if you will, off of, across from Macklin. And I think the applicant would agree with you that that's not their ideal location either, because of them wanting to be closer to the pit for the traffic, but that is what the county has dictated for them.
The county said the access to the site, not the access to the pit. I have a diagram of where the current access to the pit is. If they come in the driveway here, they've got to go all the way around to go down. Why not put the access to the pit here? They come in, go down
So it'd be
without
the west
crossing
side
in
of
front.
The only thing I was going to point out is that the ramp that we're referring to is the ramp that's there today, the ramp that was used when they dug the pit to begin with.
It's their existing already.
It's an existing ramp.
That's why they're,
Right.
so we're not gonna have back and forth between it. You can make a final comment here, but we're not I don't want this back and forth. 'cause that
Sure.
ends
The
up-
final comment is they could put in a new ramp with the amount of fill they've already got on the site. That would be less inconvenient to the neighbors to the east. And that way they still have the ramp. It's a shorter driveway and more direct access to the pit without inconveniencing the neighbors on the other side.
Does anyone else have any closing comments?
I do have Lisa Otis on Zoom.
Sure. Blaze, you're gonna get a chance to address these at the very end. I just want to avoid each person back and forth here. Does anyone in the audience have anything right now? Okay, Lisa.
Lisa, go ahead.
Thank you. Just going back to the wetland question, water is draining there. I can't, can you guarantee there's not water flowing there? And if you fill that in and you do some paving, how are you going to be able to reduce the water draining off of the site? Still kind of doesn't make sense to me. Also, there was some reason or reasons that area was deemed a wetland. So I just wanted to put that out as a comment that at some point it was deemed wetland land. Second, when we're talking about landscaping, and since there is not yet a landscape plan, there's a lot of trees, a lot of shrubs, a lot of things already on that property. Why does it have to be clear cut and then one type, a monoculture of plants being two types being planted there? I mean, as an alternative, could some of that woodland area be spared and then added to fill in where there's a lot of deciduous trees and shrubs that do not keep any kind of foliage, as a suggestion? It seems like this piece of land is just going to be a dump, basically. And I feel like there's a lot of big questions yet to be answered, as the commission has pointed out. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, anybody else in the audience have any comments? All right, please. You gotta come up if you wanna.
When I bought the property, which was over 2 years ago, I went and got a burning permit that same day. And then I came in this spring and got it renewed. So I could call my daughter and get the dates, and I have a copy of the permit sitting right in the books. So there,
I just wanted to clarify that you had one. I can look it up when I get back to the office. I just wanted to make sure.
I've had a year, 1 year, you renew it the next, and I always get the fire chief there, make sure. So just about that.
Okay.
Did you want me to cover the stormwater component that she was asking about? So I don't know if you wanted to pull up the a plan, a civil plan that shows where the infiltration basins will go. So, well, that one will work. So on this drawing, so what happens now, of course, is the majority of the site drains down into the pit. Probably what, 70 to 80% of the site drains down into the pit. Some of it escapes out the sides, and then there's a good portion, like by the buildings, that go down, go north along the road, along Town Line Road. But most of it goes in the pit and never leaves the site. So what we're replacing that with, because I mean, the pit is obviously way oversized for that purpose. It doesn't need to be that large in order to hold all that water, but the water in the ground. So we have that side of the site, the majority of the side of the site is in the future contours. They're all draining off towards the west. We have a swale picking that up and taking it into what you see there in the northwest corner. First, it enters a big forebay, which will allow that water to have a chance to clean, right? It'll settle any sediment in there. And that will drain off into the other side of that, into the corner, and that part there. And that is actually right now farm field outside of the berm area. And so that's natural ground. It's not currently mined, and we're using that natural ground. It's very infiltratable. Once you get through a few feet of soil, you get into the clay and you get into the sand and gravel layer, and it'll take that water very fast. So that actually will take all of the majority of the site, all flows to that, and all of that water will soak into the ground in a 100-year storm. It's rather large, as you see. And that is designed that whole part of the site will not, no water will leave the site in a 100-year storm. So then we have a smaller area near like the buildings and so forth in the northeast side of the site. A smaller area. And I have a smaller infiltration basin there in the corner before the water leaves and goes north along Town Line Road. That area, because that area currently runs off, I'm allowed in that area to just meet the county's regular ordinance in that area, where we're reducing all the peak flows and we're meeting all our water quality and our infiltration requirements. In fact, we're greatly exceeding them. So that one will release some water in a 100-year storm, but like 10-year and down, none of that water will leave the site. It'll all be soaked into the ground in that small infiltration basin there. And so then you'll have a little bit of runoff by like a rim around the property that will still leave because there's no way to get right to the property line and bring it in. But when you look at all three directions that the water leaves the site today, we're dramatically reducing flows in all storms. And that's how that works.
Okay, thank you. As far as the isolated natural resource, that is not, we do not determine that.
Right.
All we do is act. If we're told it's not there, we act accordingly. If we're told it's there, we act accordingly also. So that is not anything we can determine. We don't get to decide on that. So we are being told it's going to be gone, thus we must act as it's going to be gone. Okay.
So I have just a couple things. Blaze, you mentioned that only you or your subcontractors will be dumping in there. You want to mention that in your document as well. And then the last thing, just one of the people had mentioned about children trespassing on your land and falling into these pits. Is there any security concerns about that? I don't know. If it's 20 feet deep and the kids are trespassing on your land, is there a way to keep them off the property, away from your pits? Just something to think about.
Any other questions or comments from the board? All right. Jeff?
No,
Okay, any other comments from the audience? All right, well. Do we need a motion to postpone the public hearing or just postpone it?
Recommend that you have them, agenda and it should have a date, time and location. Then we'll come back.
Blaze, can you have everything back to us with time to review for the May 5th meeting? Or, because otherwise we'll have to push it to June.
What's the timeline for having everything in for that though?
Submission.
It's not May 4th.
Submission.
No, it is not May 4th. I mean, technically, any submittals for the May 5th meeting would have been due today at 4:30. So can
So
you
we're
have
looking at
something to our planner and engineer by early next week?
If you can't, we'll just do this in June.
Realistically,
Yeah, it's not gonna be, we're not getting information the week before. I'm gonna tell you right now. I won't even acknowledge information the week before anymore.
Right, so.
There's no way.
no, June. It'd be Thursday, June 2nd.
Gentlemen, why don't we just set this for June? We need you to come up here if you're gonna be, it's all being recorded.
So if I had it to you within a week.
Yeah,
the
that's- you gotta talk to the staff on that one.
7th By the 14th.
Is there any reason why you wouldn't want to wait to make sure that that packet is completed and give us time to review it before we?
Sure.
There's a
and then
lot
just have
here.
it-
I
could you have
think
it to
I
us
could
by May
have-
5th? Would you have it to us by May 5th to make the June meeting?
I'd feel pretty comfortable with that, but obviously.
It pushes you off a month.
If you
Yeah.
can't guarantee you can have it here by Tuesday or Wednesday next week, we have to go to June.
That's not a week, it's only a few days away.
Okay.
Go to June.
Make a motion to postpone the public hearing until Thursday, June, what was it again?
5th.
5th at 6:30 PM here at the Richard
No.
Young Fire Station.
June
Oh,
2nd.
Thursday, June 2nd, correction.
Sorry.
I'll second it.
Second by Joey Really. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. All right, so the public hearing number 2 was the conditional use permit request for major grading in the A10 agricultural zoning district for owner applicant Blaze Celestial Blaze Landscape Contracting for the property located at West 220 North 5859 Town Lane Road, also known as LSBT 0244.999.001. We kind of took these all together here, but does anyone have any comments for the major grading they'd like addressed? Just raise your hand if you do. No. Anyone on Zoom?
Nothing on Zoom.
All right, so we'd be looking to postpone this public hearing also. I'll make the motion to postpone or table, this, not postpone, the table, adjourn.
Any of those are fine, actually.
Motion to adjourn the public hearing until Thursday, June 2nd at 6:30 PM here at the Richard Young Fire Station. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ed Nelson. No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. All right. We're gonna start the plan commission meeting here in a minute or two.
Oh, you mean,
Absolutely, we can. Take 5 minutes.
For those of you on Zoom, we're taking a 5-minute recess. I'm pausing the recording.
All right. I'm now gonna call order the action plan commission meeting at 8:57. We've already done call to order. Everybody is still here. Jeff, you're still online. Yep, see you there.
I am.
All right, item 2 is citizens' comments. Does anyone have any citizens' comments tonight? Nobody else is.
Anyone on Zoom use the raise hand function? No hands raised on Zoom.
Right. Item 3 is approval of the minutes from the March 3rd, 2022 public hearing and plan commission meeting.
Mr. Chairman, can we please skip the minutes? I was not able to finish them due to elections this week.
Lisa threw up her hand there for citizens' comments just as we moved on. I'm gonna move back. Lisa?
Lisa, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. I was just walking back from taking a break myself. Just wanted to, I was surprised when I went to vote this week and the referendum that was on some ballots, but was not provided to all of the areas. So I just wonder why that was.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lisa, why don't you shoot me an email and I'll be happy to answer that question in the morning.
Okay.
That was only meant for certain properties, just so you know, but they'll give you the,
That's what I assumed, but you know, something like that kind of does affect the whole town. So,
it's statutory. It was a statutory thing. The law dictated how it was and how it happened, so, but we can explain that to you.
Yeah, election questions should be directed to the clerk, please. I'll be happy to answer that outside
I'll
of
give
this
you a
meeting.
shout tomorrow then. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. All right. We will move past the minutes on the new business. We have discussion necessary action on the request by Blaze Celestial Blaze Landscape Contracting for the property located at West 220 North 5859 Town Line Road, tax key LSBT 0244.999.001 in the A10 Agricultural Zoning District for the following: the conditional use permit for a contractor's yard, the conditional use permit for major grading, and the site plan and plan of operation. I'd make a motion to table all these to the Thursday, June 2nd meeting at 6:30 PM here at the Richard Young Station.
I'll second.
By Brian. No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. All right, item B, discussion necessary action request by Carl Johnson, Stark Pavement for a temporary site plan and plan of operation amendment for the property located at North 51 West 23995 Lisbon Road, LSBT 0280.992 in the A1 Quarrying Zoning District. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
You want to start or Orin? I don't care which one.
I'll give a little brief introduction here. So we've got an application from Stark Pavement Corporation, Inc. for a temporary site plan, plan of operation to run the Stark Pavement Corporation's asphalt plant on Lisbon Road at night for 60 nights during the 2022 construction season, which is typically April 1st through November 30th. Nighttime operations are typically from 9 PM to 5 AM the following morning. And it's the applicant's intent to avoid having to operate Saturday and Sunday evenings, but in the event of weather delays or other unforeseen site conditions, they may have to operate on those evenings as well. This is not the first time that this applicant has been before the commission for this type of use. A temporary plan of operation was approved on March 12th, 2020, June 13th, 2019, and April 2nd, 2018 for a change of hours to extend nighttime hours for service for interstate construction projects. There are some specific conditions of approval, and these were conditions that were attached to previous approvals for this similar uses on the same site. So there's the restriction of the temporary additional hours of operation. 24-hour continuous operation shall be temporarily allowed for a maximum of 60 nights during the 2022 construction season, April 1st through November 30th, and shall terminate on November 30th, 2022, or at the completion of the project, whichever occurs first. The site plan, plan of operation approval is subject to the petitioner complying at all times with the plans presented to the Plan Commission this evening. And then a lot of the other specific conditions that were added relate to the actual truck traffic generated by the proposed temporary hours and some limitations on that. And I would then turn it over to the petitioner unless there's any specific questions for me from the Plan Commission.
Go ahead. I'll wait for your presentation, Carl. I got some questions.
Well,
I think the planner Simult put it very succinctly and thoroughly. We're looking to run our asphalt plant at night. We have actually a number of interstate paving jobs that require any work to be performed basically off-peak or nighttime hours as a minimum inconvenience to the traveling public. So as that is a requirement of the contracts, typically we run these jobs out of our Milwaukee facility just because it is actually right on the interstate and it's very accessible. However, we sometimes have jobs that it's more advantageous to have the Lisbon facility operating at night. It's less trucking. However, it's also advantageous for us in the event of an asphalt plant breakdown at our Milwaukee facility to have the Lisbon facility as a backup plan, as oftentimes these jobs have very severe penalties if I don't get the lane back open the following morning for, morning rush hour. And we need to have a backup asphalt plant ready to go in case, God forbid, something breaks at the primary facility. So I think we've done a relatively good job of operating inconspicuously at night previously. And in addition to previous approvals, since that, the last approval, an additional landscape berm has been constructed along, it's been extended along the west edge of the property just to provide even additional screening of our activities and noise to any properties to the west of our facility. That's all I have for now.
I just got a couple of questions, Carl.
Sure.
I'm concerned about one of the conditions under here. And it happens to be the one that says for a maximum of 60 nights. Now, right now, you're permitted normal operations till 6 o'clock on Monday. So just so we're all on the same page, we're talking about the night would commence at 6 o'clock. I
Correct.
just want to make sure it's clear. And the only other thing is on that same condition, they're all put together. These are all great, but it says shall terminate on November 30th, 2022. I would suggest we consider putting a period there and getting rid of that last phrase, because right now it says around completion of the project. You're talking about more than one project. You're talking about the asphalt season. It could be 0, it could be a dozen projects.
It certainly could. Our primary goal for this facility is only one project,
Yeah, but
but yes, it
I
could
just want-
feasibly be a number of projects.
I would propose that that condition be modified and got rid of that last, or at the completion of the project.
I don't have any
I-
issue with that.
If the commission is, in fact, I just don't want a technicality to come up here. Somebody raise, holy heck, at the end.
Yeah, we're
That's
not
all.
really concerned with when the completion of the project is. We're more concerned with setting a date of when. it
Right,
should end.
right. It's going to be when they shut down asphalt, which is November 30th or sooner.
I hope I don't need to be supplying
I was
asphalt
going
on
to say,
December
I don't
1st.
think they want to. Okay,
Yeah,
that's the only comments I have, Mr. Chairman.
Everybody good with that, Ed?
yes.
Good. Jeff, you all right with that?
Yes, that's a good idea.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board?
No, I defer my comment or issue over to you, Mr. Chairman, since you're most affected.
It's great if you don't do it on weekends, but I get it if you have to. It's,
Right.
It's really not. I sleep like a rock, so I don't really hear it. What, either way.
Gonna bang those.
They might
trucks.
complain about my snoring more than they.
Yeah, I was gonna
I complain
say,
about
they're
their,
blaming on the asphalt plant.
I have to
Yeah.
tell our plant operators just to calm down. He's the town chairman. Just let it go.
Let them snore. They'll
No,
make it.
it's quite honestly, it's more expensive for us to run on weekends too, so we try to avoid it. But
You get paid extra for that, right?
no,
Yeah.
You guys have been good. I don't hear the backup alarms. I mean, every once in a while, somebody does. The hot rodders, I know you guys take care of them.
yeah, and we
you
tend
know.
to use, it's a very select group of truckers that will work for us on those types of
There was only a
jobs.
couple of times somebody was hot rodding with their Jake brakes at night. You guys took care of that right away, which was real good. So,
Glad to hear it.
all right. Any other comments or questions? Someone want to make a
I have
motion?
I have a question real quick. If staff has received any complaints from any of the neighbors in the past with respect to this operation?
Jeff, I will tell you that Stark did not apply last year. Carl, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the last time you guys applied was in 2019.
Believe it was in 2019.
Yep,
yes.
I did look in the records, Jeff. I didn't see anything in 20. I know for sure they did not apply in 21. I saw no complaints whatsoever in either paper files or on the computer files, but I did look.
Yeah, they've been doing this for more years than that, these nighttime operations, I recall.
Correct.
And it really, at least in my experience, hasn't been a problem. So I think they're first-class operation there.
Ever since Carl's been here, definitely. has been a problem.
Thank you.
It's when Gassert was there was the problem.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would move. I'll move. On the request by Carl Johnson / Stark Payment for temporary site plan and plan of operation amendment for the property located at North 51 West 23995 Lisbon Road / with an LSBT of 0280.992 in the A1 Corang zoning district be approved as requested with note of planning consultant comments.
Is there a second?
Second,
With that modification that I had.
Yes, I'm sorry, with the modification from Commissioner Eberly.
Is the second okay with that?
absolutely.
All right. Motion's been made and seconded. Any final discussion?
Mhm.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimous.
Next time we'll try and put you on the end of the agenda.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Even further.
So you, yeah, can stay longer.
Sure. Item C, discussion necessary action regarding renewal of the annual mobile home park license for American Mobile Home Communities for the 2022-2023 license year and recommendation of the town board of the same.
We received the initial letter back at the beginning of February. We received everything that they submit on a yearly basis. The only reason that it hasn't come before the board, the commission prior is because we were waiting for the surety to come in. We do now have that, and I ask for your approval.
Questions or comments from the commission? Is
So moved.
there a second?
Second,
Release, second by Nelson. Final discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Passes unanimous. Item D, discussion necessary action regarding possible termination of conditional use permit issued to Condon Properties Limited Partnership on the property located within Celtic Ridge Estates. Taking this, the lead on this one.
I'm not going to take the lead, but I do have a comment, which is that this is a commencement of a process. So if you have thoughts about it, I ask that you kind of hold those and let the process unfold, because you really need to hear the evidence as the process unfolds.
We're asking the plan commission to move forward as requested by the town board for a public hearing on a possible termination of a conditional use for the tower located on conditional use for land Condon properties for a tower that is sitting in Celtic Ridge. And so we're just asking for the plan commission's approval to move it forward as recommended by the town board.
So move.
Second,
Set to a date certain.
May.
May
May.
5th.
May
I
5th.
guess that's next one. Yeah,
Yep.
May 5th.
Yeah, at what time?
6:30.
I can hardly.
So I'd amend that motion to hit occur at May 5th at 6:30 PM here at the Richard Young Fire Station. Second, okay with that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right, that cover us on everything? Final discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's a point of information. Is that supposed to be a joint hearing with the town board?
No.
The conditional uses are
I was gonna
just
say
with
it
the
is not,
plan
but my
commission, I
thing is off.
believe.
So it's, the conditional use itself says that the plan commission holds the hearing.
Mhm.
Public
Yes.
hearing and the plan commission and town of Lisbon determine certain findings.
So we could do a public hearing, a joint hearing and have them all here. Just to cover it, so then we don't,
It doesn't
We don't
actually
have to
use
do
the word
another hearing for
board,
the town
but
board.
it does create a little ambiguity. I think it would be better to include the town board.
Thanks, Jeff.
That's all right.
Right. Move on to item E then, which is discussion necessary action regarding the following annual inspections. We have quarrying inspections and business and conditional use. Oh, do we not vote on that one? I had it marked down, we passed unanimous.
Where?
Was there a vote on that item?
Yeah.
I have
Okay.
5-0.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so we have discussion necessary action regarding the following annual inspections, the quarrying inspections and the business and conditional uses.
All right. So, gentlemen, in your packets, with your packet materials, you should have two spreadsheets that I laid out for you prior to tonight's meeting. The colorful one is the list of quarries. The one that is obviously a spreadsheet is the one for the business plans of operation. I printed out the business plans of operation the way that I did without adding the more recent ones. Simply because we all know who the recent ones were, and I wanted you to see what years which plans of operation were reviewed. In 2020 and 2021, the Plan Commission opted not to do those inspections due to the pandemic. So I wanted everyone to be aware of when the last time these businesses were inspected was.
Is there a
So,
frequency that is quote unquote common or what, or anybody know, or
There's,
didn't you say before there were like 58 of them out there?
I do have the, let me see if
Conditional
I'm
uses.
able to screen share. Hang on. I was able to do it before.
we want to start with the mineral extraction and have people take the,
Good time.
Well, the quarry ones we are required by statute.
Yes.
so who would like to take Payne and Dolan?
I will.
Okay, Ed.
I-
Genesee.
Can I make a recommendation
Sure.
very quickly? Is Genesee aggregate on the list? I'm
Yes.
looking at.
Yeah, it's
paper
the
The
here.
next
second
one.
one.
Okay, sorry. th- I would recommend that not be, basically, the operation is, they're not operating out of either side of Plainview, to my
You're
knowledge.
asking us not to do what we have.
Eh.
they-
That's a good one. That's a good one to do.
I'll do-
Okay, I will throw my name in the ring for Payne and Dolan and, if I may, Stone Products. Excuse me?
Three of them.
Uh,
That's pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, no,
That's pretty
it's
cool
an
to go
incredible operation, yeah, and Hans is very efficient. So yes, I'll jump in the pool.
through. You get to ride the little
Okay.
truck.
Okay,
Check out
Stark.
their stuff.
I can do Stark and, I mean, how many,
We've
If you
got
want to-
Genesee Aggregate.
I will take those two if you want.
Okay, Joey. And then we have left, yep, Hugwest and Lafarge. Brian?
I don't care, either one or all of them,
Both
although
of them?
Jeff's gotta take one.
Jeff, do you have a
Jeff.
preference for Halquist or
Yeah,
Lafarge?
Jeff, whichever one, I'll take the left, whatever's left over.
Jeff, if you're awake, you're still out there.
I could do Lafarge. I haven't been in that one yet.
Okay,
That's a good one, too.
so Jeff
Yes.
Lafarge, Brian Halquist,
Yep, got it.
Ed Lannonstone,
And Dane,
Payne and
and
Dolan,
I'm going back up to the top.
sure.
Joe Stark, Joe Genesee, Ed Payne and Dolan.
And you'll give us the stuff?
Yep, I will email everything to all of you tomorrow. I just didn't want to inundate everyone's emails with all of the data,
And then,
because there's a lot.
Including the contact information?
Yep, I've got all of it.
Okay, beautiful.
All right,
so
thank you.
one more thing for anyone that reviewed last year's quarries but didn't get the paperwork turned in, could you please turn your paperwork in for the ones that you did review, that you said you were gonna review last year?
Yeah,
Thank you.
everyone that's here, I got their stuff.
Oh,
Kathy, we're
Yeah.
very
in
efficient.
my first meeting, I remember hearing that.
Mhm.
Because I wasn't here.
Okay.
Joe, you didn't shred the paper, did you?
This is from them.
Not allowed to have those.
Okay.
Wrong,
next.
Joe, but that's okay.
All
Oh,
right,
yeah, I
so,
know. That's pretty cool.
We have conditional uses that we want to review.
Oh, outcomes.
We kind of established in the past that we were gonna be more based on a lot of this stuff.
Well,
we-
we,
we-
okay.
but it's on my
so-
agenda to put
Bring
it
it
out
forward.
there if you guys want to do it, or if we just want to continue doing on a complaint base.
Can
So
we,
we have a
maybe
complaint.
maybe if staff could come back with a recommendation of frequency, and then we'll just act on that, then we can divvy them up. I mean, whether it's complaint,
I
no, I
think-
mean,
I think in general, if we're gonna stay on complaint base, the one complaint that we have is on Celtic Ridge Tower. It's a conditional use. It has not been reviewed. That might be something to consider, is to have somebody review that tower and possibly review the other tower we have at Mary's storage, custom storage.
well,
Can we just modify that one?
Not yet, they haven't submitted the remainder of
Right.
I
materials
could
for
do
their
the
site
one
plan
at
plan of
Mary's
operation.
because I can throw a bucket from my backyard to do that one.
Okay,
You can send me the information on that one,
sure.
since it's right around the corner.
Anybody interested in doing the one at Celtic Ridge? Go
I
ahead and take
can
a
do
look.
that one too.
Okay. Joey.
Just send me the stuff and, or I can pick all that up and,
I was gonna say, good luck with that.
I haven't had any other complaints on RCUs.
I don't have to go up to 190
No,
foot, do I?
climb up the tower, see if
Yeah.
it's,
Think I am. Damn.
I'll loan you my hard.
Yeah,
I'll loan you my
it
hard
sounds
drive,
like
my
some,
hard disk,
yeah,
you know.
sounds like something a building inspector should do, go to the top of the towers and verify those.
That's all I got for you guys. Thank you.
Brian, that we should be looking at?
No, the only thing I was gonna say is All American Automotive. I don't believe they're in business anymore. It's now Joe's Auto Care. That's the one behind,
Yeah, we-
I simply pulled up
Um,
the sheet from 2019.
So is Warrior Warehouse still there?
yeah, I was looking at that one too, and I can't remember if that one's there or not.
I mean, we should have a bunch of. There should be more on here then.
There are quite a few more, but I printed this off so you can see what was the last time that we checked them out and which ones were checked.
I just have
Correct.
just a general question about one of these that's on this list. Does their CU allow them to build that mountain that they've built over there?
I don't know what mountain you're talking about.
Well, you go anywhere near.
This isn't a CU list.
Is it's at least 100 feet high.
Joe, this isn't a
Where is
CU
it?
list. This is a plan of operation list.
Yeah, well, that would include that.
Okay.
too, but I
So
don't
over
say
by
it's-
Lennonstone, that one?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I see it every day. It's huge.
It's,
And
I mean, it's,
I've thought about that because I go by there at 4:30 every morning. And they are out there with their trucks already at 4:30 in the morning.
oh, I know they are. Who's
So
gonna,
I never looked at.
I
that one.
cannot do that one for other reasons that I don't want to go into right now, but I'm thinking that somebody
Is the
should
topsoil right?
take a look at their plan of operation and see if they're in. Yeah, because it is huge,
Which business?
always.
Oh, always.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Oh,
there
right
is
there
a
by the
legal
railroad tracks,
issue
by
here,
Plainville Road.
which is equal protection. We kind of have to, the advantage of a complaint-based enforcement system is that you don't have to worry about it. The complaints come and you enforce. If you're picking and choosing, there's a risk that you're gonna have equal protection concerns. If you have a regular inspection program, you don't have a problem because you're just following a regular inspection program. So I just throw it out there that, and I'm not at all concerned about the discussion to this point, but just keep in mind that there are equal protection laws issues surrounding your enforcement program.
That's why you're here. Keep us on.
So the only one we have a complaint on is of the Ridge Tower. We can still look at always because we both, but not as a review for.
And we're allowed to review the plan if we notice.
Of course, or you could have a schedule every 5 years, whatever, but it's just, you want to be fair to everybody about how you're setting up your enforcement, not singling out some for, yeah, right.
Okay. Everybody's got their marching orders?
Yes.
Paperwork, get it up. What's the time frame?
Who's looking at always?
No one.
No one? So
Look at their
just,
site plan.
Yeah, the day after.
Can you have it done before the next meeting? Or
If I can get a hold of the people, I'll
Before
get
the,
them done.
let me rephrase that, the June meeting, because May is really. supposed to begin.
We're required to have them done by.
correct. Yep.
By the end of May.
Done by May, I will email everyone all of their materials that they will need to do the quarry inspections. If you can get them back to me by the end of the month, then I can distribute them to the members, put them on the June agenda for discussion.
They just have to be completed by.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
No problem.
All right.
By the end of May.
Final report?
I did say end of May, didn't I? Okay.
We had a couple, 2-3 planner appointments today for a CSM on North Lisbon Road, and they are going to be requesting sewer pack to do some wetland delineations for them. They're not in a hurry, so that won't be before this body anytime in the near future. We had a meeting for a CSM on Lake 5 over on County Q. And that applicant's going to speak with the county. There might be some issues with lot size associated with that. So we'll see if that moves forward or not, if they can work through some issues. And then we've got a CSM and site plan of operation anticipated to be on the May meeting for the business park. And that was a meeting with Bryan Builders. So that's for sure one of the items that will likely be on our May meeting. And we have other submittals that will definitely be on.
Yes. But, final plan and
I see them digging on.
we have a final plat and some 2 conceptuals. No. What did Newman just bring it? Were they
Final
both-
plat for Harvest Ridge, conceptual for
Boyd's property. I don't know what they're
Uh,
calling it.
Hickory Hill West by, is it Hickory?
Osplick.
By
They
Osplick?
came, remember they came before, Newman came before
Yep,
on
they
the
revamped that.
property from right next to Osplick. came back with a different, they're coming back and.
Slightly different layout.
Yeah. And then,
Swanson CSM.
and Swanson CSM, that's the one that we
He's-
denied.
He's
There's-
ready for prime time now.
So it's gonna be
Eventually they will be. I just haven't received anything yet. And there's one more that I
So it
can't
won't be in
think
May.
of. No, May will be,
And then we
May will
have-
be busy.
the Boyd property. It's conceptual. Yeah, we'll have, yeah, they're conceptual for Boyd, this bridge, and then final plat on phase 3. Hickory. So it'll be a busy one. Eat your Wheaties before you come.
All right, next is a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Made by Joe. Is there a second?
Oh.
Second by Ed. No discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are out at
Good night, Jeff.
9:29. Thank you.
Night.
Bye, Lisa.
Good night all.
What